the app itself. So this is the GUI for the app. So let's first go over the structure of the GUI, and then we'll go over the functionalities of the app. So on the title, you see ECS 1022 W18 Lab 5 Extended Bank Application, the title. And then there are 3 sections for you to design. So the first section over here for creating an account. So you have a text field for entering the name of clients. You got another text field for entering the balance of the initial balance for the clients, and then a button for creating a new account into and add it into the bank. Also, for the second section here, you can select a service type implementing using a spinner. You can choose either deposit, withdraw, or transfer. And then you have a text field for entering the name of the front clients. And this text field is only applicable for transfer and withdraw. You do not put this field usually for deposit. You only deposit into. And the second text field over here is for entering the name of the 2 clients for transfer and also deposit. So that means usually for withdraw, you don't say withdraw to, you only say deposit into. Okay, so for withdraw, you will leave this field empty. Okay, and now finally you also got a text field for entering the amount of the service transaction you have chosen from the spinner. Okay, and finally you have a button click for completing the transaction. And the final section over here has a text field for entering the name of the clients you would like to output the statements. As soon as you enter the name as a string, and then you can output the statements over here by the button click. And for all the initial balance amount for these 2 text fields, you should really expect the user to enter a double number with the decimal points in their value. Okay, that's about the GUI design. So now let's talk about the functionality of the app. Okay, so now as soon as you launch the app, it represents an empty bank, meaning that there are 0 clients in the bank. So in that case, by the way, so for all the 3 sections over here, for all the 3 buttons, we may click on them in any arbitrary order. So your app should really support to deal with the arbitrary execution of these 3 buttons. Okay, well, I will illustrate how they work right away. So now, initially the bank is empty, meaning there are no clients added to the bank just yet. So what we can do is, we can already try to do some transaction, even though there are no clients. And in that case, we should really display some error messages. So in many occasions, there might be multiple errors occurring at the same time, in which case only one error message should be printed. It should be printed for the error with the highest priority. And the higher the priority is for an error message, the lower rank it is. You can see the ranking number in the instructions for the lab for details. There are actually detailed tables there to show you. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the details for this particular demo. Okay, let's see the first example. Let's say I want to choose deposit over here, and then I will say I want to deposit into client A. So I'll leave the from clients empty. Deposit into A. Even if I enter something in the empty field, it should be ignored. Okay, but I will leave it empty. That's something you can assume. And I will enter, let's say, the amount of 100. Okay, now in this case, we have one error over here because A does not exist in the empty bank. So as soon as I say complete transaction, it will say error, client A does not exist. Okay, similarly, if I say withdraw over here, and then I say withdraw from B. So I will leave the 2 clients empty. Okay, even if I enter anything here, it should be ignored. Okay, and then enter an amount. I would say, let's say 100. Okay, and then you can now see we also got one error over here because B does not exist. So if I say complete transaction, it would say error, client B does not exist. Okay, and then we'll go for the next one. Let's say we do for transfer. The transfer requires both fields for the clients to be filled in. Let's say we put client C and client A over here, and then we put 100. So now in this case, we got 2 errors. So we have the from clients not existing and also the 2 clients not existing. So we got 2 errors, but we only print out 1 error message for this. So the from clients error has a lower rank, which means it has a higher priority. So we only print it out. Okay, and now we say complete transaction. You would see from client C does not exist. Okay, so now one more thing to show you, and you will apply to all the 3 transactions we just illustrated so far. So let me now go back to deposit, and then I will say deposit into A, and then I'll leave this empty over here. Now let me introduce just another error. If I say minus 100 over here, you can see now we have 2 errors. A does not exist, and also the amount is non-positive. In which case, we still only print out only one error message, and the error for the client name has a lower rank, meaning it has a higher priority. So we only print out an error message for this. Okay, so now when we say complete transaction, it's still gonna say client A does not exist. Okay, so now let's try to add some account into our bank so we can see other more interesting operations. Let me just leave this empty just to avoid confusion. Okay. Let's now go to create some account over here. Let's say we want to create an account for clients with name A. And then we will put some amount over here. Let's say minus 100.567. Okay. Now in this case, so how many errors do we have? The client A does not exist in the bank, so we can add it as a new client. So that one's okay. And the amount over here is negative. Okay, it's non-positive. Okay. In that case, there's only one error over here. So when we say create account, it would say error non-positive initial balance. By the way, non-positive means less than or equal to 0. So the boundary case for a non-positive amount would be just 0. Okay, let's give it a try. So now let me change that from minus 100.567 to just 0. In which case that it will still be considered as invalid. Okay, let me say create account. You will see also error non-positive initial balance. Okay, remember non-positive means less than or equal to 0, including 0. Okay, so now after this, let's try another one. Let's say if I put 100.567. Okay, in this case, the account does not exist just yet, and also the amount is positive. So that means both inputs are valid. And now in this case, we can add the account into the bank. And now as soon as I add this account into the bank, I should display the balance of the client only 2 digits after the decimal point. So when I say create account, you will see that update the balance of all the clients over here, and then I will just print out the list of clients in the bank so far. Okay, so I will say A colon $ 100.57 because I have 567, so I will only print it as 57 after decimal points. The next one, let's now go to the following. Let's say now I try to create another account, but now in this case, let me say I still put A over here, and then I put a different amount. Let's say I put 200.567. Even though this amount is positive, but now A over here is now considered as invalid because there's already an account called A in the bank. If I try to add 8 again into the bank, it's considered as error. The name you want to add into the bank must be non-existing. Okay, now, so if I say create account, it's gonna say error client A already exists. Okay, now the more interesting case is as follows. Now let's say I introduce another error. Let's say I put minus 200.567. What's going to happen? So now we got 2 errors at the moment. Error number 1, as before, A is already existing. And also error number 2, this amount over here is non-positive. So now we got 2 errors, but we only print out exactly 1 error message for the error that has lower rank. So now this name of the client has lower rank than the balance of the account. Okay, so now if I say create account, I would say still error client A already exists. Okay, hopefully you see that. So now let's go on to actually create more accounts into our bank. So now I would like to create, let's say client B, and then let's say I put some positive amount. I would say 200.563. Okay, so now you can see B is non-existing and the amount over here is positive, so both inputs are valid. So now as soon as I put in, it's going to display only 2 decimal digits after the decimal point, so it'll be 200.56. Okay, so now when I say create account, it's gonna have, you see 200.56. Now, so far we got 2 clients. Remember, every time after you actually create a new account, you must put all the accounts that have been added so far into the bank and put their latest balance over here with the $sign and only 2 digits after the decimal point. Okay, so now we got 2 accounts. Let me add another account before we do some transaction. So now I put client C, and then I will put 300.479. Okay, and also positive. So now if I say create account over here, you will see that. So now we got A, B, and C. You can see the way we organize the accounts is according to the chronological order in which they were added into the bank. Okay, you can imagine that under the hood, you actually have an array of client objects in the bank class. Okay. So now let's go a little bit further. So now that we got 3 accounts in our bank, let's now try to do some transaction on them or between them. Okay. So first of all, let me just delete the text over here just to to avoid confusion over here. Okay. Now so now you can see that 100, 200, and 300 for A, B, and C. Now let's do deposit. Okay. First of all, let me say I want to do deposit, and then I put deposit into an account called D with minus $50. Again, we have 2 errors over here. D is non-existing because we only got A, B, and C. And also, minus 50 is non-positive. So if I simply do that, I'll say complete transaction. It's going to say client D does not exist. He only reports the first error over here with a lower rank. Okay. And now, what about I put, let's say I want to put deposit into C. Okay, but before I do that, let me just say output statement over here. I will just put C over here, and then output statements. You can see the statement, whenever you say output statements, first of all, it's going to say statements of the clients, whatever name you enter over here, C, and then parentheses, you would say what the current balance for the client is, the latest balance. In which case, for C, it still has its initial balance 300.48 and colon. You can see it's completely empty below this first line over here. It's simply because for client C, its history of transactions is still empty. But as soon as we do a successful deposit, withdraw, and transfer on C, we're going to add into this transaction array. Okay, we're going to do that in just a moment. Okay, let's just pay attention to currently it's 300.48 for client C. Okay, so now let's say for deposit, let's now get rid of the first error. Let's say we do have an existing client over here, but now we still have a negative amount over here. Okay, and now if we say complete transaction, it's not going to go through because error non-positive amount. But we want to make sure any failing transaction is not going to affect any of the existing balances of any clients in the bank. So now if I say output statements again for C, you can see that the statement output remains the same. Okay, so statements, so client C was not affected by the failing transaction. Okay, so you still got a balance 300.48. Okay, so now one more time. Let's say I also got rid of this error over here. Let's say I simply put 200. Okay, so if I put 200 over here, let's say 200 is strictly less than is positive and also is strictly less than the current balance for C. So now this one should go through. If I say complete transaction over here, you will see that now it's being successful. Every time when you have a successful transaction, you must output the same output as create account. You just output all the existing clients with their latest balance. So now for C over here, we just deposit into it $200. So it's being incremented from 300 to 500. Okay, you can see 500.48 over here. But now let's see what's gonna happen to output statements of C. Okay, we got C here. Let's say output statements. You will see that output statement C, statement of client C, current balance has been incremented to 500, and also we just added the latest deposit we just did into the history of transactions into C of C. So we got transaction, and there are 2 kinds of transaction for this lab, either deposit or withdraw. in the case of transfer, you will actually got two separate transactions for the corresponding clients. I'll illustrate that in just a moment. So transaction deposit or transaction withdraw, depending on which one you just did. So now for client C, we just did deposit. So it was a deposit with $200, exactly like that. So once it's completed successfully, it should be added to the history. Okay. So now let's try another one. Let's say we remain deposit and also C and also 200. Okay. Let's say we still have that. Okay, and then I will say 200, and then we'll say complete transaction again. Okay, you can see now we have just incremented C's value from 500 to 700. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you, right? So 300 to 500 and 500 to 700. So now if we want to output the statements again, what we will see is you will see deposit, the first deposit transaction and the second deposit transaction. Okay, let me just do one more. Okay, what about I say just 15? Okay, and then if I say complete transaction over here, you can say 715. And I say output statements, you will see it's actually 15 deposit, right? Hopefully you see the idea. Okay, that's about it for the deposit. Okay, let's now do for withdraw. Okay. Let's now do withdraw. Let's say withdraw for B. Okay, let's do for B. So for B, for withdraw, we're gonna say withdraw from. So I'll put B here, and then I will choose withdraw, and then enter some amount. Okay, let's see this. If I say withdraw, first of all, let's try something, some clients that does not exist. Okay, what I can do is I can say withdraw. Let's say D. And then I can put, let's say, minus 50 over here. Okay, so now if I say minus 50, so now again we got two errors over here. Error number one, D is non-existing. Error number two, the amount is non-positive, but we only output the error message for the error that has lower rank, which is the from clients. Okay, so now if I say complete transaction over here, client D does not exist. Okay, and now let's say we try to do, let's say we put B over here. Okay, if we put B here, B exists in the bank, and then we still have one error over here, right? Which means the amount is non-positive. So now if I say complete transaction, it's gonna say non-positive amount. Okay, so now what we want to do is we can simply go to output the statements of B and make sure B was not affected by this failing transaction. If I say output statements, it will say statements of client B, current balance 200.56, which is still the initial balance that we just when we first created client B. Okay, let's try more. Okay, let's try to withdraw more. So you can see currently the balance for B is 200.56. So what I can do is, what about we try to do the following? Let's say we try to withdraw, let's say 101. Okay, 101 from B. Let's see what's going to happen. So you can see 101 is strictly less than, is positive, and it's also strictly less than 200.56. So it is affordable for B to have this withdrawal. So when we say complete transaction, you will see that B has been B's balance has been decremented to 99.56. Okay, so now if we say output statements over here for B, you will see that that transaction of type withdraw. Remember, we either got with deposit or withdraw. Withdraw is 101.00. Okay, so that's the transaction amount, and then the balance has been the latest balance for B will be 99.56. Okay, let's do another withdrawal. Given that it's now 99.56, what about I try to withdraw 100, for example? You can see 100 is strictly larger than the current balance, in which case we cannot withdraw. We should not be able to allow to do that. So that's something you want to support for the error handling. So now if I say complete transaction over here, it would say error amount too large to withdraw. Okay, And in this case, let's make sure the B's balance was unaffected by this failing transaction. So if I say output statements for B again, I'm going to see statements of client B, and the current balance is still 99.56, and the latest withdrawal of $100 was not added to the history of transaction. Okay. Hopefully see how we do for the withdrawal. Okay. So now let's do the last service we can provide. Let's do for transfer. Okay. Let's now do for transfer over here. Let's say we want to transfer from, let's say, from C into A. How about that? But before we do that, why don't we just put E into D, and then for minus $50. Okay. Now we actually got 3 sources of error over here. E does not exist. D does not exist. Minus 50 is non-positive, but we only print out the error for the lowest rank error, which is the front clients. So if you say complete transaction, it's going to say error, the front client's E does not exist. Okay, let's now change this a little bit. Let's say I change the front clients to be existing clients. So now we still got 2 errors. So D does not exist, although this is non-positive. So what we will print out is the next rank error, in which case that'll be 2 clients name. So if I say complete transaction, it would say 2 client D does not exist. Okay. So now what about I change that to maybe A. Okay. If I change that to A, so now what's going to happen over here? If I change that to A, before I change that to A, what I would like to do is, you can see that if you output the statements, you can still double check that the previous failing transaction did not affect the balance for C. Okay, just make sure that's the case, right? So now I can simply say output the statements for C. You can see C over here, still it has the balance of 715.48 from the previous 3 deposits. Okay, it still remained the same. It was unaffected. Okay, let's now put A over here back, and then I will do minus 50. Okay, what's going to happen here? We still got 1 error over here, which is non-positive amount for the transfer. So if we say complete transaction, it would say non-positive amount. But now what we should do is we want to make sure both C and A are unaffected by this failing transaction. Let's do that quickly. For C, we can say output statements remain the same. Okay, the 3 transactions, the size 3 transaction history as before, and also 715. Now what about A? For A over here, it should also be unaffected. When you say output A, the statements, A still remains as its initial balance for 100.57. Nothing has been done for A just yet. Okay. So now what we will do is we'll do another okay. Let's do another one. Remember, C's balance is about 700 something. Okay. Let's remind ourselves, and we want to do some valid. We want to do one more transfer error. So output statements, you can see currently C has 715.48. So what we can do is 716. If I do that, you can see this amount in here is strictly larger than the current balance for C. You can think it this way for transfer. When I say I want to transfer 716 from C into A, that means I want to withdraw this amount from C and at the same time deposit the same amount into A. So you can think about transfer as 2 separate transactions at the same time. Deposit for the 2 clients, withdraw for the front clients. In this case, if I say complete transaction, it would say amount too large to transfer because 716 is too large for C to withdraw from. Okay. The next one. So let's say now, what about we want to do transfer? Let's say only 350. What about that? Okay, if I do that, let's see what's going to happen. So you can see that output statement again for C, you can see 715, which is strictly larger than what we want to transfer. Okay, so you can see I can say complete transaction. Let's predict what's going to happen. What's going to happen is this 350 will be treated as a withdrawal from C and add it as a deposit into A. So it will be added into the transaction history for both clients. Let's see that. The complete transaction over here. So now you can see that. So C's balance has been decremented by 350. At the same time, A's balance has been incremented by 350. So now if we output the statements for C, let's see what's being added. Output the statement for C, you can see the latest transaction that we just did is over here at the end. So we have just transfer, which means we have withdrawn this amount, 350, from C. So that has been added. Symmetrically, what about A? If I put A over here, when I say output statements, you can see for A, its initial balance has been incremented to 457 because of the transfer we did, which is considered as a deposit for A. So that's 350. Okay, remember, there is no type of transaction called transfer. So whenever we do transfer from one client into another, we have to create a deposit and a withdrawal, and then add it accordingly to the corresponding client's history. Okay, that's about transfer over here. So now you can see currently, let's just see what's the current balance for C. Okay, if I say output the statements for C, so currently it still got 365.48. So what about I put 345 again? Okay, again, this transfer should be okay. 345 is strictly less than this. So what do we expect to see? We should expect another withdrawal of this amount, 345, added to client C's transaction, and another deposit transaction of this amount into A's transaction history. Let's verify that. So if I say complete transaction, it is not okay. So you can see C's balance has been further decremented by 345, and A's balance has been further incremented by 345. Now, if I output the statements for C, you can see now this latest withdrawal transaction represents the 345 that we just did for the transfer. And as symmetrically, if I put A over here, you will see that for A, output the statements for A, you can see the second transfer we did, which was 345, is considered as a deposit for A. Okay, you can see every time we do transfer, we gotta create two separate transactions and add it accordingly. One more time. So now what about I try to do, let me just remind myself what C's balance is. If I say C over here, I say output statements, so now it's only $20. What about I say $25? Okay, so now you can see that if I try to do this, 25 is way too large for C to transfer. So if I say complete transaction, it will say amount too large to transfer. Again, we want to make sure this failing transaction did not affect either A or C. So now if I output C statements again, remains to be the same. It still got $20 and still got 5 transactions in the history. Specifically, this transaction of 25, this attempt was not successfully completed, so it was not added to the transaction history. Similarly, if I see A's statements over here, if I output statements for A, you can see that transaction there, which failed, was also not added to the transaction history for A, and A's balance remains the same. Okay, so that's about the 3 surface transactions we would like to support. Okay, let's now try to see more operations. Again, let me just delete these fields over here just for clarity, and then I want to play a little bit more with creating the accounts. Now, just for fun, if I say C over here and then I put 20, right? You can see that this one, since we got A, B, and C at moments in the bank, so if I say create account, even though 20 is non-positive, but if I say create account, it's going to say client C already exists, so it's an error. Okay, so now let's try to add more clients into the bank. Let's say I do client D, which does not exist, and 20 is non-positive. I can say create account. So now we got A, B, C, and also D with their latest balances. Okay, and then let's do another one. Let's say E, and then I will put 30. Okay, and then I would say create account over here. So now I got E added over here. So now I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's add one more. Client F, with balance, let's say 40 over here, and then I would say create account. So you can see A, B, C, D, E, F with the correct balances output. So now we can see that we already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clients in the bank. In your instruction, it tells you that there is a constraint on how many clients we can store up to in the bank. 6 is a magic number, you should know, for this particular lab. We can only store up to 6 clients in the bank. So now we already reached our maximum limits for the bank. So what we should do is try to see if a corresponding error message will be output if we try to do one more. So now what I can do is I can say client G, and then what about 50? So now this is the 7th clients we want to add, but it should not be allowed. So if I say create account, it would say error, maximum number of clients reached. Okay, so now I wouldn't do it, it would be time consuming, but if I try output statements for A, B, C, D, E, F, all of their status should not be modified. All their transaction history must remain the same. Okay, so now one more, because we know that G was not added as clients. So that means if I try to output the statements for G, it should not go through because G was not added, so G does not exist. So now if I say output statements, it will tell me that error client G does not exist. Okay, so that's about the illustration I would like to do for you for this particular app. You should really pay close attention to how the GUI is designed and also how the individual error messages should be output. Refer to the instructions. And before you go on and do the lab, you should really make sure you spend a good amount of time studying the 2 sources of materials, the tutorial series and also the written tutorial documents.